As we get closer to entering the 2025 college football season, things seem all but certain as to the SEC's future within the NCAA. Will they stick around? Is Greg Sankey really threatening to leave? We're going to take a deep dive into that and really the college football playoff arguments that we've heard over the last 24 to 36 hours and see, are they really worth the argument, and is there really an argument to be had about the SEC and its secession from the NCAA? We also have a look back at our top five list that we did as Loudmouth Sports a couple years ago. And I'm going to go back through those and edit those as I see fit as we enter the 2025 season, as we've hit the quarter century mark. I named my quarter century team yesterday. If you didn't see that video, go check it out. This is Armchair Analysis. Welcome in to this Wednesday episode, May 28th of 2025. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week so far. And if you are, that's awesome. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. It helps you get back to our videos. And honestly, I've had a lot of fun with these the last couple of days. The content has been good, really, and I've gotten more than enough from the recent happenings around the college football world. So hopefully you guys are all willing to stick around, and if you are, again, I appreciate you taking the time to be here today. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into the topic of the day. And the main one here is the Greg Sankey, Kalen DeBoer comments from earlier yesterday, I guess would be the way that those came out, maybe 2 days ago now. But what was stated was, to the extent of strength of schedule meaning something, or thinking that strength of schedule meaning something, and now today the college football world is more about not losing than it is about playing a meaningful opponent. I hear you, and I understand that. Alabama, as a matter of fact, plays Florida State and Wisconsin this year. Their win totals, by the way, the max is 7.5 for Florida State. I believe Wisconsin's sitting at 5.5 or 6.5 right now. Not looking great in terms of that when you got two teams that are barely expected to be bowl eligible this season in your out of conference P5 schedule. And sure, P5 means something, but what does it really mean? You know, Alabama didn't go and play Ohio State. They will soon, but not right now. You know, Alabama hasn't gone and played in Oklahoma. They do, obviously, in conference play, but when it was at Big 12 Oklahoma, they didn't. They're playing Florida State and Wisconsin. And we'll preview those teams. As a matter of fact, quick shameless plug. Florida State team preview, Sunday, June 1st, kicks off preview season. 67 straight days, plus Notre Dame, of college football team previews. Make sure you stick around for that. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to get into that as we lead our way to August, where then we get into college football season, like playing season. We don't really use off season. We got recruiting season, we got preview season, and we got playing season. We're in preview season now, so it's that time. But anyways, in these conversations, you know, Alabama last year 9-3 on the record, and they had some good wins, really impressive wins. A win against Georgia, big deal. A win against LSU, a blowout win against LSU, a big deal. However, you knew there was a but here. You lose to Tennessee, that's really no big deal. You lose to Tennessee, that happens. However, you lose to Vanderbilt by 5 in Nashville. I don't really care where you're playing. You lose to Vanderbilt. You lose, embarrassingly, to Oklahoma. Don't really care where that game was played. You got blown out by an Oklahoma team that was not good, really had no identity to their team other than a good defense. Had no idea what they were doing offensively, and they still hung 20 plus. This was, honestly, I would go to argue one of the worst seasons in recent memory for Alabama. I mean, it certainly was. They didn't even make the 12-team playoff, which you would think if they were almost certainly a lock to make the 4-team, they would translate no problem. But the question was, and the things, the statements that were made were strength of schedule doesn't mean anything. Okay. Well, let's take a look at that. You were 9-3, and you were the first team out of the college football playoff. Why? Well, you had some good wins. You beat South Carolina. You beat, again, LSU. You had a win over Georgia, a big win over Georgia even. You put all those together, you put everything that they compiled together through the course of the season. 9-3 was enough to be the first team out of the playoff in the SEC. You could argue that you were there specifically because your schedule was tougher than everybody else's. Your road was tougher than everybody else's. It just so happened that everybody else around you took care of business. And that would be why you did not make the college football playoff. When you look at these things, they went to Wisconsin and got a massive win, 42-10. Then they walked out and absolutely stomped, boat raced Georgia in the first half. But then they let Georgia back in the game. They win 41-34. Ryan Williams, hero after that game. You lose to Vandy on the road. You come back home and play South Carolina and beat them by 2. Relied on some ref ball. And look, I'm not saying this is fan. That's what you relied on. You relied on that and some luck to get you out of there. You then play Tennessee on the road and you lose. You shut out Missouri, who was supposed to be better, but they were not good enough to be at the top of the SEC. You beat LSU on the road. You lose 24-3 at Oklahoma, and then you beat Auburn 28-14 in Bryant-Denny Stadium. You could argue that the Georgia and LSU wins, and I guess even the Missouri shutout, the South Carolina win, those propelled you to be the first team out. But your losses, and most specifically this November 23rd loss to Oklahoma, kept you from the playoffs. You win that game, you're in the playoffs. Rather, you're sitting at home and you're going and playing in the ReliQuest Bowl, not sitting many players in this game, to include your star quarterback, Jalen Miller, who's looking for some draft capital. And instead, you get embarrassed. You lose 19-13. I don't care if weather played a factor or not. You lose 19-13, playing the majority of your stars. It proved the point at the end of the day. But it raised some questions for me. Does the SEC truly deserve benefit of the doubt? That answer is obvious. Yes, they do. 9-3 in the SEC should be comparable to 10-2 or even 11-1 in the ACC and maybe even the Big 12. But I would argue, especially the ACC in 2024, heck, you go back to 2023. Yes, it did. The SEC got benefit of the doubt. Let's not forget the strength of schedule is what put SEC Alabama in the playoff in 2023 over undefeated Florida State. Why did that happen? Because the SEC couldn't leave out Texas, who beat Alabama head-to-head. But Alabama was going to get in because the SEC gets benefit of the doubt because they play a tougher schedule. Nobody's denying that statement. The SEC has been the best college football conference for 20 years now. Probably even longer than that, I would say. You probably better have it last 40. But it doesn't mean that you just get your free pass. At least not right now. We're not talking about the 16-team playoff with 4 auto bids to the ACC or the SEC and the Big Ten. We're talking about the 2025 or 2024-2025 playoff with 12 teams, top 4 conference champs get a bye. 5th conference champion gets put in there, and then everybody else is an at-large. And there's no guarantee to what the committee's going to say. Should other conferences be discounted because of the SEC? No. But again, it goes back to the same conversation, really. Not all records are built the same. SEC 9-3 sometimes is going to look better than an ACC 11-1. If Duke goes 11-1 this year and their only loss is to Clemson, what are we going to say about Duke versus what are we going to say about Alabama, whose 2025 schedule? Better yet, I'll use Alabama because this is actually a pretty solid group. They play Florida State on the road. They play Wisconsin at home and non-conference. Those are 2 teams, again, that are expected to be bowl eligible at a minimum. Go on the road to Georgia. You play Vandy, who didn't really lose much. Diego Pavia is back. Eli Stowers is back. This is going to be pretty solid roster once again. You go to Missouri, who people are expecting to improve, and I think their defense is going to be really good this year. You play Tennessee at home, on the road to South Carolina, bye week, LSU, Oklahoma, both at home, Eastern Illinois. Who cares, man? It's a November FCS game, 8 or 9 conference games. Who cares? Look at that conference schedule. Then they go at Auburn, who, oh, by the way, everybody's expecting to be much better. You're telling me that 9-3 with a loss to South Carolina, a loss to Georgia, and a loss to Oklahoma. Tell me 9-3 with 3 losses that are by 10 points or less, and that doesn't look better than Duke, who goes 11-1 and loses to Clemson by 30. And that's just hypothetical, by the way. I'm not throwing shade at Duke. I'm just saying, if those are the hypotheticals, if those are the questions in hand, if Duke is 11-2, losing the ACC championship game to Clemson, losing 2 games to Clemson by 2+ scores, and Alabama hasn't lost a game by more than 10 all season, and we're going to walk out of here and say that Alabama isn't more deserving or isn't a better team through the eye test than Duke, the BCS computers would say that likely Alabama is better than Duke. So it all goes back to, at the end of the day, my ultimate dream for the college football playoff, and especially the new college football playoff where they don't do top 4 conference champs get a bye, is that we bring back the BCS computers. Let the BCS computers rank these teams, because what they used to do is exactly what we're trying to do right now. It just takes the human element out of it and lets the computers use their formula that was built truly perfectly for this format and puts together arguably the best college football playoff year in and year out. That's what I wish would happen. I know it's speaking too much. I know it's wishing for too much, assuming too many things are going to happen. But at the end of the day, it also comes back to this, which is what I will leave you with. Greg Sankey made the quote earlier today where he says that his people are questioning why we haven't left the NCAA. Okay. Why don't you? The reason is because you have 16 teams, and if you do, nobody else is going to play you. Nobody else is going to feed into your product, and it's just going to be the SEC teams playing against each other. Which, don't misunderstand me, I don't have a particular problem with that on paper. I don't have a particular problem with watching the NFL either. But it won't be covered here. It won't be covered by a lot, because the reason is it's a self-righteous, a self-fulfilling thing, or at least so they think. And certainly it's going to bring in money because it's the best programs in college football playing each other. But it takes away everything that college football was and is. And I don't really know why people are trying to kill it. I don't know why Greg Sankey has this thing against the ACC and Big 12 commissioners where he says, I don't know why other conferences are trying to tell me what to do or tell us how to run our thing. It's because what you're doing is killing the sport. Or what you're attempting to do is killing the sport. Or what you're trying to portray to do would absolutely 100% kill college football. At least as we know it. It's never going to go away because at the end of the day, it makes too much money for the universities. It's got to stay. It's going to find a way to be there. Same way college basketball will be. But what it will eventually do is kill the very being of the sport. And once you do that, it's going to be really hard to get back what we once knew. Regionality, rivalries, Clemson, South Carolina might cease to exist. We may not see another 8 overtime, 9 overtime Georgia Tech game. Why do we not want to see those rivalry games happen? Those are all the question marks that go through my head. And in this thought process of why would the SEC want to do it? We know the answer. We all know what it is. It's the same color as this shirt, maybe a little darker. It's called money. Greed ruins everything. It ruins all things at some point in time. Our job as fans is to voice those opinions, voice those thoughts of what we see clear as day, and what everybody else who's driven by money doesn't see. You see, that's the reason why I'm willing to speak so honestly about this, because I'm not paid by any of these people. I don't ever expect to be either. I expect this to be me talking freely and openly. And what it is here is everybody's blinded, wearing these money-tinted lenses, and they don't realize that there is a dire consequence potentially on the other end of it. We'll see what eventually happens. Too many things to say. The biggest thing is, I'll leave you with two things. One, the SEC right now, if it's the SEC and Big Ten, but right now we're seeing the SEC, Greg Sankey, be the most outspoken. If it's just the SEC, they leave themselves on an island on their own. That's the biggest thing. The second thing, bring back the BCS computers, put together the playoffs the way they were meant to be, the way that those computers put together the best formats and the best rankings out there. You know, everybody was pissed when Boise State got left out. Everybody was pissed when Oklahoma State got left out in 2011. However, if we had a playoff system back in 2011, it would have been perfectly ranked and ranked appropriately. We cared about deserving versus resumes, whereas the BCS rewarded the resumes. That's all I'm saying, is it would have been an absolute blast to see. And it would still be an absolute blast to see. You know, I'm sure they still exist somewhere. Maybe they can remake that formula and put together something special. But with that said, I'm not going to waste any more of your time running around in circles about the same thing that everybody else is. Let's go ahead and talk about a list that you may have never seen before. And if you haven't, welcome here. So I put together my top, or my quarter century team yesterday, and to some good feedback, some good responses, and honestly, it made me happy because I enjoyed that more than I really thought I would. And it makes me happy to know that other people enjoyed that as well. But now we move on. And what we're moving on to is lists that I made. I found a book that I have from that I have promptly titled Loudmouth CFP News and Topics. This composition notebook held every single note that I took and every single show I prepared during the 2023 college football season. Why? Why did that exist, and why was that a thing? Because that's how we rolled out here. And it was a lot of fun. I had more fun than I could ever imagine doing so. But what we did was we put together our top 5 players at every position since the year 2000. We did this back in 2023, February of 2023, so over 2 years ago, with the intent of coming back to it in 2025 and talking about what we would change or who may have put themselves in these conversations. So I went through these lists and I took notes to what I would adjust, but I'm also going to remind you of what we had a few years ago. So in the quarterback conversation, this is what we came up with. Tim Tebow was our number 1 quarterback, our best quarterback since 2000, followed by Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Kellen Moore, and Vince Young. We had Baker Mayfield and Andrew Luck in this conversation as well. Now, obviously, you know that I agree with this, and I would not make any changes. I don't think there was a quarterback who truly deserves to be in this conversation as of right now. Caleb Williams, you could probably argue if you wanted to, but he didn't have the hardware behind him other than a Heisman Trophy. And I don't reward just a Heisman Trophy. So with that said, no changes for me to make. Honestly, there's nobody that I would add further into this conversation. There are guys that I liked a lot. Graham Harrell, one of them. Cole Brennan, another one. But there is not a guy over the last couple of years that I would put up here. So no changes to be made to that top 5. It stays Tebow, Burrow, Lawrence, Moore, and Young. Our best running backs. here. And by the way, I will add real quick, we didn't do tight ends for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know how we missed it, but we didn't. So, yeah, that's what we got there. Top 5 running backs since 2000. We had Reggie Bush, Christian McCaffrey, Adrian Peterson, Darren McFadden, and Saquon Barkley. I don't think I would really change anybody in the top 5. I might move around the order. Darren McFadden would certainly go higher for me. Christian McCaffrey would probably be my number 1. But I love Reggie Bush. I love Adrian Peterson. And Saquon Barkley is one of my favorite players of all time. I would not have added anybody in here. I think Ashton Jeanty would be an interesting one to put into the conversation. I would also do the same with Blake Corum. Not particularly because of stats per se. His stats at Michigan are hard to beat, and he's the all-time touchdown record holder. But Blake Corum would go in there because of the heart that he brought to the program and what he did en route to a 2023 national championship and 3 straight playoff appearances. Blake Corum was just as big of a deal to that team as J.J. McCarthy, as the defense that surrounded. But neither of which I would put in the top 5, leaving this alone. Moving on to our top 5 wide receivers, we had Calvin Johnson, Michael Crabtree, Jamar Chase, Larry Fitzgerald, and Percy Harvin, with Andre Johnson and Ted Ginn Jr. just missing out. And my addendum would be Tavon Austin jumping higher into this conversation. He would be my first one out behind Percy Harvin, but I love Tavon Austin, and a lot of people do. Jeremiah Smith, on the other hand, is going to be on this list. If we do this again in 5 years, talking about the best players since 2000, without question, I think Jeremiah Smith's going to be on this list, barring catastrophe that we really don't want to see happen. So, that's where I stand right now. Now, somebody's going to come in and say, well, what about Ryan Williams and how good he was last year? I'm fine with that. I can agree with that. But Jeremiah Smith has already produced, already proven, and sounds like he's going to be 100 overall in college football 25, which I know that doesn't really mean much. But he's the best player in college football right now, and a lot of people will agree with that sentiment. In terms of offensive linemen, we had Jake Long, Marquise Pouncey, Joe Thomas, Barrett Jones, Trent Williams, with Taylor Lewan as our honorable mention. And I would add Cooper Beebe to the conversation. But to be honest, offensive line is not really where I succeed, especially individually. So I'm not going to make any changes. I'm going to leave it alone. I still like this list a lot. As for moving on to defense, again, no tight ends. I don't know why we didn't do a list of tight ends back then, but we didn't. So here we go. Defensive linemen together, ends and tackles. We had Ndamukong Suh, J.J. Watt, Davion Clowney, Myles Garrett, Julius Peppers, with Terrell Suggs and Dwight Freeney the first ones out. Elvis Dumervil was still in this conversation. Glenn Dorsey was in the conversation, Brian Arakpo, and even Ryan Kerrigan, who got shouted out yesterday in the video. And my addition would be the Bosa brothers and Aiden Hutchinson. Somehow the Bosa brothers weren't even in this conversation to begin with, and I really don't know why. Chase Young was here, John Simon was in here. I really don't know how we missed the Bosa brothers or how they got missed out on. So that would be my addendum. I don't know if I would put any of them in over these guys. Aiden Hutchinson, this is more of a sentimental thing, obviously, would probably go in there above Julius Peppers, but it's hard for me to agree or make that judgment because I know Peppers was such a game changer himself at UNC. But I couldn't put him above 5. So Aiden Hutchinson moves up to the conversation. Whether he belongs there or not, I'll let it be decided in the comments. Moving on to linebackers. Back in 2023, we had James Laurinaitis, Brian Urlacher, Paul Posluszny, Luke Kuechly, Patrick Willis, along with Manti Te'o and Von Miller. I would add Abdul Carter. Micah Parsons was in the conversation. I would put him a little bit further into the conversation. My top 5 would be Paul Posluszny, Luke Kuechly, James Laurinaitis, Brian Urlacher, and Micah Parsons. Why was Posluszny not in yesterday's video? Because Luke Kuechly was a little more versatile as a linebacker in college, and he was just an overall captain-like player on the defense. And with Chris Borland being probably the mic as it stood, I wanted Kuechly on that list. But Paul Posluszny, if you don't know, educate. Because that guy was an absolute dog at Penn State. He's pretty solid in Jacksonville, too, before he eventually, I'm almost certain is retired by now, but I could be mistaken. At safety, we had Ed Reed and Sean Taylor, 1 and 2, as I had yesterday, sweeping the safety board because they are the 2 best I've ever seen. Roy Williams of Oklahoma, Antrell Roll jumped in here. 3 Miami University players up there. And then Troy Polamalu. We also had Major Wright and Eric Berry. Other conversations included Earl Thomas. Kyle Hamilton jumped into this conversation, and I certainly agree with Kyle Hamilton up here. Let's see. Who else do we have? Taylor Mays, former USC safety. Big fan of this entire list, personally. But my list, I would say that I think Caleb Downs is going to enter the conversation. Now, he's not quite the safety that was on this list, the hard-hitting, ball-hawking safety. He's a ball-hawking. He's great in coverage. I really love what Caleb Downs is as a player. I don't think he would be a top 5 guy, but I think he will enter the conversation, especially when his career is finally said and done. But I can't say I would change a thing here. I know I had Taylor Mays at 3 when we did this list. I had Reed, Taylor Mays, Wright, and then Roy Williams at 5. I think Taylor Mays I'd jump up there, certainly. But it's tough for me to make that decision. I love the list we had. Same thing with the cornerback list, where we had Patrick Peterson, Aqib Talib, Tyrann Mathieu, Sauce Gardner, and Joe Hayden, with Minkah Fitzpatrick and Antonio Cromartie on this list. We also had guys such as, let's see here, make sure I get this right here. Tracy Porter, Quentin Jammer, Malcolm Jenkins was in the conversation, Bradley Roby, Jonathan Banks, Rock Yassin. Had a bunch of just dogs on these lists. Prince Amukamara was on this list. It's absolutely unreal. I wouldn't change a thing here either. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was cool to go back through these lists and determine and honestly to go back through and see that we didn't make the changes that I thought we might. And it's nothing really against the current players. I think that there is a bit of a nostalgia thing, and you really don't want to let recency bias take over in something like this, right? When you go and look back and you say something such as, you could overreact and say that Ashton Jeanty certainly belongs there, but did Ashton Jeanty play better competition in his college career at Boise State than somebody such as Adrian Peterson? Or, we could talk about whether or not, Jeremiah Smith would be willing to be thrown in there over a guy like Percy Harvin. And where was Aaron Donald in the defensive line list? I know he was brought up, but he didn't make our list. There's just a lot of things and a lot of guys, that it has to come between stats and personal opinion, because that's what these are. These are opinion pieces. I don't expect every single person that watches these to agree, but the expectation is that you walk away either knowing something or thinking of a name that, hey, I haven't really heard of that before in a while. Let's go check it out. The ultimate goal is to educate, really, whether it's good or bad, and educating myself even through the comments, which I love when you guys leave. And if you got through the rest of this video, leave a comment. Let me know who you guys would add, who I may not have mentioned over the last couple of years, who has entered the conversation of best since 2000. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. It's it's super fun doing these and looking back at these. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that we're done, but I'm glad because I don't get to oversaturate it, right? We can move on and I can come back next year and talk about something else similar to this, and try to put together better and more fun content all in all. So I thank everybody for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Means the absolute world. Again, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Subscribing and liking, both are free. I mean, they just really what they do is they help my videos enter the algorithm if you like it. And if you subscribe, they help my videos enter your algorithm. Therefore, you can see more content that comes out. And I promise you, starting Sunday, June 1st, you are not going to want to miss a video. Every single Power 5 team, to include Notre Dame, every single day, Saturday or Sunday through Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, videos will go up. There will also be the chance for emergency pods. Those will be live or as necessary when we have big news that drops over the course of the rest of summer, leading up to playing season, when everything settles itself out on the field. I thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'm hoping to see you guys tomorrow. I got something really special planned. Make sure you stick around. But until then, I'll see you guys later.